We're embarked upon a course of almost unbelievable stupidity. The historic error made by Chancellor Merkel last year by saying all can come has led directly to this mess. And now we're being blackmailed by Turkey. First they came for 3 billion in a promise to reduce the numbers coming in to Greece and the rest of Europe. And of course, when the numbers increased many-fold, they came back for another 3 billion. And they will keep on coming back for more and more and more. As the British poet Rudyard Kipling observed of the Danish incursions into England. And that is called paying the Danegeld. But we proved it again and again that if once you have paid him the Danegeld, you'll never get rid of a Dane. And now they've got us over a barrel. This new deal, where for every one illegal migrant we send back, if our human rights laws allow it, they'll send us another one back from Syria. So the argument is, we've paid them a fortune not to reduce numbers, and yet we've given in and we've said visa-free access for 75 million Turks from June of this year. In theory, they can stay for 90 days. In practice, many will disappear or, of course, claim family reunion. The numbers will go sharply, sharply up. And in return for all of this, we're now going to fast-track Turkey as a full member of the European Union. My goodness me, I wish that David Cameron was as good at negotiations as the Turks are. So we're going to go into political union with a country that's got borders with Iraq, Iran and Syria. We're going to go into political union with a country that is poorer than anybody else in the European Union and give free movement for 75 people, and join up with a government that is increasingly Islamist and authoritarian. The Turkish Prime Minister said this week, Turkish membership will be a turning point. Too right. The British Prime Minister has long supported Turkey being a member of this union. In fact, he's fought hard over 10 years for them to join. He doesn't bat an eyelid at the extra £500 million we will stump up to help fund this crisis. Well, this referendum in Britain is all about what is the safest option. And given that the boss of Europol says already there are 3,000 to 5,000 Islamist terrorists that have come into Europe using the migrant routes, it's pretty clear to me that a vote to remain is a vote for Turkey. A vote to remain is a vote for massively increased immigration into Britain, and a vote to remain is a vote that makes Britain more vulnerable to terrorism. Safer to vote to leave and take back control of our borders. Thank you.
With me, Andrew Farmer. Now, Turkey's president has defended his push for greater executive powers by using Nazi Germany as an example of an effective presidential system.
When we look at other countries, we see that it is possible. You can see this when you look at Hitler's Germany and other countries.
Well, following the outcry over Erdogan's words there, government officials have insisted he was actually attempting to highlight Nazi Germany as an example of what can go wrong. Still, some media outlets who have picked up on the story used the opportunity to compare Recep Tayyip Erdogan's face with that of the Nazi leader. Erdogan wants to change the Turkish constitution to turn the ceremonial role of president into something more like a chief executive. On social media, there was outrage too. Some Twitter users there have called Erdogan a new Hitler, saying his governmental system was already like a Nazi dictatorship. Turkey's president is no stranger to controversial statements. Last year he said foreigners like seeing Turkish children die, and he insisted equality between men and women is against nature. That social media is the worst menace to society too, and Erdogan has publicly said he doesn't care what the international community thinks about his actions. Well, Jamal Wakim, a professor of international relations at Beirut's Lebanese University, says it's not the first time Turkish leaders have made comparisons like this.
Well, I believe that this is not the first time that the Turkish leadership takes Nazi Germany as a role model, the current one. This is not the people for the Turkish leadership. Maybe it's new for the international audience. to hear that from him, because usually he expresses this on the local level. But this is the first time that he voices his thoughts on an international level, and that's why it might be a shock for the international audience, but not for the local one.
Well, Turkey's attack on the Russian bomber is the first such incident between a NATO country and Moscow in half a century. Across the media, there are concerns that relations between the alliance and Russia could now deteriorate, and we could see a return to Cold War time. Turkey has been supported by its NATO allies for defending its airspace. However, some strong words were said to Ankara during an emergency meeting, according to Russia's top diplomat.
The way that NATO discussion went is no secret to us. It was very heated. Turkey was sharply rebuked for the attack on the Russian plane. We also know that the statement made by the NATO Secretary General was not agreed by everyone.
Well, while NATO urges all sides to remain calm and avoid an escalation in Europe, concerns are growing that Ankara's aggressive action is benefiting Islamic State. Allegations of an illegal oil trade with Turkey are once again on the radar.
Basically, that shouldn't happen. For many years, we've been insisting that it's time to pull Turkey's ears, speaking in a diplomatic way. This country, despite being a NATO member, as I've said before, has demonstrated extreme connivance towards terrorist groups that are destabilizing Syria.
The Turks are buying oil from ISIL. We have proof that almost all oil exported by Islamic State is going directly to Turkish refineries. There are even no detours. These trade routes go directly to Turkish companies that are processing this oil. The collusion between Turkey with Islamic State is evident, and it sparks serious concerns.
President Erdogan has several objectives. His first goal is to gain access to oil in Iraqi Kurdistan. Secondly, he wants to take control of northern Syria to create a buffer zone. Finally, the fight against ISIL permits Erdogan to justify Turkey's military operations against the Kurds in Syria and to divert attention from Turkey's hegemonic attitude. Erdogan's policies are insanely dangerous.
Yakaladığın yerde keseceksin yani. Onları. Onlar kim? Ateistleri. Allah'a inanmıyorlar. Yani inanmıyorlar, Allah kitabına inanmıyorlar yani.
Hayvan abi onlar, insan değil.
Nasıl ya? İnsan abi, bildiğimiz insan. Nasıl hayvan oluyor?
Öyle insan olmaz abi. Yani bizim gibi insanlar değil onlar.
Onlar hepsinin canı cehenneme. Öyle Allah'a inanmayan, yani canı cehenneme.
Allah belalarını versin. Yakaladığım yere tek tek onları şırıngaya kanalarım onlardan. Nasıl? Taktım mı arkadan çıkar. Baba. Ya ben şimdi abi ateist işte. Allah peygamberine inanmıyor işte. Tamam inanmıyor ama bir şey anlatmaz mıyız ona yani? Anlatalım. Gidelim İslam'ı anlatalım ona. Abi işte verelim, onları da gırtlakla kessinler. İşte canlı canlı böyle. Ama insan değil mi onlar? İnsanlar abi.
Onlar cahil insanlar.
Nasıl yani?
Gavurlar. Ya ne bileyim mi baba, onlar dümenci insanlar, yalancı insanlar.
Nasıl yani?
Evet, ateist ne demek? Şerefsiz bir insandır, şimdi yalan söylemeyelim. Çünkü Allah'a inanmayan insan, insan değildir. Hayvandır, hayvan da olamaz zaten. Hayvan da Allah'a inanan bir insandır. Beyinleri yok yani.
Failures in my long years here, the introduction of a currency that's impoverished the Mediterranean. I've seen the idealised Schengen area lead to the free movement of Kalashnikovs, and every single week and month we see the attempt to create a single state of Europe, which of course the European peoples don't want. But the EU's common asylum policy is the lowest ebb for policy yet. Chancellor Merkel took the cork out of a champagne bottle and said anyone could come, and now you're trying to put the cork back in and realising it's not possible. So you've turned to somebody else to sort out your own problem. So let's talk Turkey. They have taken your weakness and they've now decided they're going to blackmail you. Not only do they want 3 billion euros from you this year, they're going to want 3 billion euros from you every single year. And in return, they've given absolutely no guarantees whatsoever that they will stop people from coming or indeed take people back. And they've managed to persuade you, whatever the Commissioner says, into offering them, by October next year, visa-free access for 75 million people whose average GDP income is half that of the poorest EU member state. I guess what you're doing is you're saying the way we'll stop illegal immigration is to make it all legal immigration. And if that doesn't take the biscuit, now you're going to fast-track Turkey to be an EU member. So let's just think about that. A country, 97% of whose landmass is in Asia, apparently you want to join Europe. It is a country that appears to be keener on bombing the Kurds than it is on taking on ISIS. It is a country that has turned a complete blind eye to ISIS fighters travelling through its territory. It is a country, according to the Pew Institute, whose poll last week showed that 8% of those 75 million actively encourage and support the aims of ISIS. It is a country directly and closely linked with buying ISIS oil, and we will finish up bordering Syria, Iraq and Iran. It is mad. It is the most dangerous decision the European Union has yet taken. I'm sure the British Prime Minister will be delighted. He's campaigned for this since 2005. To me, without any of the other debate, if there was one single reason why Britain should, in this referendum, vote to leave the European Union, it is the folly of political integration with Turkey. It is not only stupid, it is damned dangerous.
Mr. Farage, Mr. Weigel has a question to ask you.
Gospod Farage.
Mr. Farage, you were very determined when describing all the bad things you see in our relationship with Turkey. Could you name another country which in this point of time could make a more efficient contribution towards what we are trying to combat today? We're trying to get a grip of the refugee crisis. And the second question, were you just as determined when speaking at home where your country participated in destroying the countries which the refugees are now fleeing?
Believe you me, I was no supporter of Tony Blair's endless series of wars, and if I was in a different parliament and not this one, I would vote against the bombing campaign that Mr Cameron wishes to join the Americans and French in, because it has been poorly, badly thought through with no long-term strategy whatsoever. Look, if you want to deal with a problem that you've caused yourself in life, rather than relying on somebody else to do it for you, perhaps it's better to recognise and realise you've made a mistake. And the only solution open to the European Union is to follow the example of Australia, who from 2008 onwards had a lot of boats heading towards their country, a lot of boats sinking, a lot of people drowning, many of the similar symptoms and problems, and the Australians said, if you wish to become a refugee or a migrant to Australia, you will not succeed in doing so if you come via this route. And the boats stopped coming. And the EU needs to have the moral courage to stand up and say that, but frankly, they haven't got the guts.
Newly elected British Prime Minister David Cameron has thrown his full weight behind Turkey's quest to gain EU membership. Speaking to business leaders during a visit to Ankara, Cameron expressed exasperation at the deep division among fellow EU members over welcoming Turkey into the fold.
When I think about what Turkey has done to defend Europe as a NATO ally, and what Turkey is doing today in Afghanistan alongside our European allies, it makes me angry that your progress towards EU membership can be frustrated in the way that it has been. My view is clear. I believe it's just wrong to say that Turkey can guard the camp but not be allowed to sit in the tent. So I will remain your strongest possible advocate for EU membership and for greater influence at the top table of European diplomacy.
France, in particular, which initially opposed Britain's inclusion in the EU back in 1973, opposes Turkey's possible ascension, citing cultural differences and concerns over the bloc's political cohesion. But Cameron, whose Conservative Party seeks to emphasize the role of the EU as a free market rather than a political union, takes a different approach. He believes Turkey could help bring greater prosperity and political stability to the bloc due to its vast economic potential and influence in the Middle East and Asia. Lily Paquette, Reuters.
In a recent interview, Barack Obama blamed his European allies for not stopping Libya from becoming a, quote, mess following NATO's intervention and the overthrow of Colonel Gaddafi 5 years ago. He went as far as to call his allies free riders, saying some of them tried to take credit for the attacks.
Nos forces aériennes s'opposeront à toute agression des avions du colonel Kadhafi.
Come on, fire!
A good day for you?
A very good day for us.
Showed the world you would get rid of a dictator and you would choose freedom. Vive Benghazi! Vive la Libye! Vive l'amitié entre la France et la Libye!
RT's Laura Smith looked into President Obama's decision to make public his disappointment and frustration with partners.
It's very rare that a serving president of the US would criticise, particularly his allies, of course, in this way. He's criticising here the UK and French leaders, and essentially what he's saying is that he blames them for Libya becoming what is called in polite diplomatic circles in the US a mess. And behind closed doors, according to President Obama, something much ruder. He said that British Prime Minister David Cameron soon stopped paying attention, becoming, as Obama said, distracted by a range of other things. About France, he said that Sarkozy wanted to trumpet the flights that he was making in the air campaign, despite the fact that Obama says America wiped out all the air defences and essentially set up the entire infrastructure for the invasion. He's accusing Sarkozy for taking credit for something that he didn't really do. It was essentially downhill from there, though. The accusation from Obama is that Cameron and Sarkozy, after that, quickly stopped paying attention. They left tribalism to take over in Libya and, of course, become what we see today, which is a haven for IS and somewhere that is the target of US and allied airstrikes at the moment.
The US administration tried to do damage control after the president's interview by praising David Cameron and saying that everyone, including the US, could have done more for Libya following the intervention. Abdul Bari Atwan, commentator for the London-based Al-Quds Al-Arabi newspaper, thinks Obama's trying to shift the blame away from Washington for Libya's chaos.
The United States, which is the leader of NATO, is responsible for what is happening on the Libyan front. It is a huge mess there. Bloodshed, failed state, militia, controlling most of the countries. I believe Obama realized that it is a huge mistake. It is miscalculation, and he is trying to blame everybody else except himself. It is true, Sarkozy, Nicolas Sarkozy and David Cameron of Britain are responsible, but I believe the major responsible figure is Obama himself.
Well, the chaos and destruction in Libya started soon after the Western intervention 5 years ago. The war-torn country has two rival governments, the internationally recognized one and the other made up by the Islamist Libya Dawn Group. Islamic State is also active in the country, and a recent UN report claims the group strengthened its foothold in the region. The document adds the rise of extremists is likely to increase international interference and provoke even further polarization.
A roaring welcome in Libya's second city of Benghazi for Nicolas Sarkozy and David Cameron. The British Prime Minister and French President shared the triumphal limelight with interim Premier Mahmoud Jibril to an outpouring of thanks.
It is great to be here in free Benghazi and in free Libya. Your city was an inspiration to the world as you threw off a dictator and chose freedom.
It's here the uprising against Muammar Gaddafi started.
Amis de Benghazi.
Friends of Benghazi, the French president said, we ask you now one thing.
Nous croyons
We believe in Libya united, not Libya divided.
Divisé. Vive Benghazi. Vive la Libye.
Earlier, the special visitors had landed in the capital, Tripoli. The two who spearheaded the West's military intervention to help remove Gaddafi are the first senior foreign leaders to come since his fall. As well as meeting Libyan National Transitional Council figures, they dropped by a hospital. Cameron and Sarkozy in February were the foremost voices in rallying NATO support for the rebellion.
Don't believe them. Don't trust them. They're dying. Let them die. Let them die. Let them die.